Hello everyone, welcome to the introductory session of physics where we are going to be starting with the concept of vectors. Now up to 10th standard, right, we would have covered some physical quantities. Even in the 8th standard level, 9th standard level, we keep learning about new physical quantities. But the point is, we would not have thoroughly understood some of the basic aspects of those physical quantities. Now, when we say basic aspects of the physical quantities, what we're talking about is how these physical quantities will behave, what kind of operations can be there between the physical quantities, and things like that. So, if you look at broadly physical quantities, right, there are one set of physical quantities for which the operations and relations between them will be very straightforward, and that category is what we call as scalars. We learn more about them, and there is other bunch of physical quantities for which the relations will follow a set of rules. That also we are going to anyway cover in this. So the physical quantities that we see. So what is a physical quantity, by the way? I mean, this definition, right? We will see even in the units and dimensions. So what is a physical quantity? So we say anything that is measurable. So anything that is measurable, we'll call it as what? A physical quantity. Like length is a physical quantity, mass is a physical quantity, time is a physical quantity, acceleration, displacement, force, momentum. So current, charge, all these are what? Physical quantities. Now, when we look at the physical quantities, right, they can be categorized into these two sets. One set of physical quantities, which we call as scalars, and other set of physical quantities which we call as vectors. What is the difference between these two? I'll give you an example so that we can understand, okay, how the difference will actually exist between the scalar quantities and the vector quantities. Say for example, I have a object of mass 2 kg and I take another object of mass 3 kg. Okay, so I already have an object of mass 2 kg and I take another object of mass 3 kg. Now if somebody asks me what is the total mass that is available with me, so what will be the answer? The total mass is going to be what? 2 plus 3, which is going to be 5 kgs. Correct. So this is how we look at what is the total mass. Whereas if you look at, say for example, there is an object, okay, and we are applying a force of 5 newtons on that object, and let us apply another 5 newton force. Now if you're applying another 5 newton force, I'll give you like couple of scenarios. First case, I am applying 5 newton another 5 newton force in the same direction. Second case, I am applying 5 newton force exactly in the opposite direction. Third case, there is a first 5 newton force, second 5 newton force I apply in some orientation, some direction. Okay, so first case is what? Exactly same direction. Second case is exactly opposite. Third case is some other direction. Okay, now if we try to look at what is the total force, we learn about how do we find the total force value, but just to give you the hint, right, the total force value is going to be different in each of these three cases. I am applying only two forces. Each of them are having how much value? 5 newton, 5 newton. But first one, the total force will be something. Second one, I mean, if we try to bring in our understanding from the 9th standard level, right? If you apply 5 newton, 4 newton in the same direction, you can tell me what will be the total force. You say it is 10 newton. We will learn how this 10 newton comes, but this is something that we would have probably remembered at the back of our mind right from the 9th standard level, adding of forces. If there is a force 5 newton in this direction, another force 5 newton in this direction, then what is the common observation? the total force is going to be how much? 0. This is what we practically see also. You have an object, somebody tries to push it, you also try to push it with the same force. What is the observation? That particular object will not move. Means what? The total force on that will be 0. Correct. Now in case 3, depending upon the orientation between the two forces, right, the total force value is going to be changing. We'll also learn about it. How are we going to find the total force? But the concept is, the way we are adding mass, we cannot do the same method for the force. And that is the fundamental difference between the scalars and vectors. So the way we perform the operation means what? Like this addition, subtraction. We'll see, there will be multiplication and things like that. The operations involving scalars, right, they'll be more like the algebraic operations. Means what? Like the way we simply add and subtract numbers. That is what you'll see in the case of the scalars. Like, if I have, say for example, I have a mass of 10 kg. From that I remove 2 kg, means remaining is going to be what? 10 minus 2 is going to be 8. Like that, the way we do the algebraic number addition subtraction, like that, right? Scalars will have the same kind of rules. That is why I said in the beginning, what? The straightforward rules, the rules that we are already very much familiar with. Whereas vectors, here we are taking the example of what? Force is a vector. Okay, vectors, we will not be able to perform the same. The algebraic relations that we are using in scalars, right, they will not be valid in the case of vectors. So this is one way of looking at the difference between the scalars and vectors. There is one more way of understanding the difference. So first we will try to get the basic idea of what is this scalar and what is this vector. Then we will go into detailed definitions, the definition that will be required for examination point of view. Because if in the examination they are asking what is a scalar, what is a vector, then we must be able to actually give the definition in a particular format. We'll also see that. Okay, so here if you look at a scalar, right, like say for example, already I said mass is a scalar. Okay, now look at the marker pen in my hand. So if I ask you what is the mass of this pen, it's just an example sake. If I ask you what is the mass of the pen, you say that okay, the mass of the pen is 10 grams. Means the information about this quantity, what is the quantity we are talking about here? Mass. By just giving the value, so we also call it as, by the way, magnitude. The value of the physical quantity, right, is also by the way called as what? Magnitude. By just giving the value or magnitude, the information about the quantity is complete. That's it, over. Whereas look at the case 2. This is case 1 where we are discussing about the scalar. Case 2, right, I am talking about a vector. Say there is an object. Okay, and I will tell you that I am applying a force of 5 newtons. I say what? A force of 5 newtons is applied on that object. Then is the information complete? You will be immediately asking, sir, in what direction the force is applied? Is the force applied in the north direction? Is it applied in the south? Is it applied in the east? Is it applied in the west? Or in what direction the force is being applied? So the information about the vector, right, will be complete only when we talk about the magnitude and direction. The information about the vectors will be complete only when we talk about magnitude and direction. Scalars, just the magnitude, right, will be sufficient to describe a scalar. If you want to describe a scalar quantity, means just talking about the magnitude will be sufficient. But vectors, right, we have to talk about the magnitude part as well as direction part. Okay, so this is another way of looking at the difference between the scalars and vectors. Now before we go into the definition of what is a scalar and what is a vector, Let us again take a relook at that total force concept or the resultant force. By the way, in vectors, right, the total value of all the vector quantities is also called as the resultant or sometimes net. Okay, so here when we talked about the object on which, say, there are two forces acting, so what did we say? So we took the cases, right? Case 1 is what? Both 5 newtons applied in the same direction. Case 2 is what? The 5 newtons forces are applied in the exactly opposite direction. Case 3, what we said, the 5 newton forces will be in some orientation, they will be at some angle with respect to each other. Now the observation that we make here is the resultant, right, the resultant force or net force or total force, I mean whatever the wording that we use, the resultant force or net force or total force is dependent upon not only the force magnitudes. So the resultant is dependent upon what? The force magnitudes. It is also dependent upon the direction between the forces, or we can say, in better word, we can say what? The orientation between the forces. So if the two forces are in the same orientation, means same direction, we have seen the resultant. We'll learn more about how we are getting the 10, but I'm saying, we'll try to recall from our understanding in the 9th standard operations. So 5 plus 5 will be 10 comes here. In this case, it is going to be what? 0. In this case, the value, the resultant value will be between 0 to 10, depending upon what is the orientation between the forces. We can also say orientation means what? The angle between the directions, like that we can say. Okay, so this is what we call as the vector law of addition. So what is this vector law of addition? We'll try to understand more about this as we go into the discussion about vectors. What is the basic concept of vector law of addition? The basic concept of vector law of addition is the total value of the vector quantities, or the resultant value or the net value, whatever we say, is not only going to be depending upon the magnitudes of the vectors. Like in this case, we are talking about the force, because force is also a vector, right? The resultant will not only depend upon the magnitudes of the vectors available, but it also depends upon the orientation between them. It also depends upon the orientation between them. That is not the case in scalar quantities. Scalar quantities is what? If you have 2 grams, bring 3 grams, total is what? 2 plus 3, 5. Bring another 3 grams, 5 plus 3 is what? 8, like that. Simple addition concept. But here it is not like that. When we are finding the total value or the resultant or net value, we also have to be considering the orientation between these vector quantities. And this law is what we will call as the vector law of addition. What do you call it as? Vector law of addition. There are methods to understand the vector law of addition, so we'll learn as we go into the discussion about the vectors. So we'll try to understand the vector law of addition either by using what we call as a triangle law of addition or a parallelogram law of addition. So we'll discuss more about it, but this is what is the basic idea of vector law of addition. Now why we are discussing so much about the vector law of addition, I'll tell you when we go into the definition of what are vectors. Okay, so first we'll begin with the definition of scalars, because this is a simpler one. Okay, what is it? Physical quantities that have only magnitude and no direction are called as scalar quantities, or simply scalars. This is actually the conventional definition. This is what is the conventional definition. What do you say about the scalars? Physical quantities that have only magnitude and no direction, right? We call them as scalars or scalar quantities as per the conventional definition. Okay, and just by giving the magnitude, right, like mass, we'll give the value. Distance covered, so if you're covering, distance means just the value will be sufficient. If you talk about the density, just the value will be sufficient. Like time, value will be sufficient. So all these quantities, right, which we just require to give the magnitude, so we'll call them as what? Scalars. So look at the examples. Mass is a scalar, time is also scalar. Speed, speed is what? Distance by time. What is speed? Speed is equal to what? Distance traveled by time. Distance is a scalar. Length of the total length of the path covered, like say for example, if you are moving from one place to other place in a particular path, total length of the path covered is what? Distance. Shortest distance from initial point to final point, straight line distance from initial point to final point, right, will be called as what? Displacement. It is a vector. Displacement will be having direction from starting point to ending point or initial point to final point. That is what is the displacement. Correct. Now temperature, thermal temperature is also a scalar. Potential, remember, electric potential. So where do we have work done? In 10th standard we have this, right? So work done in moving a charge is equal to what? Charge value into the potential difference. If you have 2 points, between the 2 points you want to move a charge, means what is the work to be done? The work to be done is equal to Q into delta V, Q into difference in the potential, electric potential. That is also a scalar. Work is also a scalar. Energy is a scalar. Power is a scalar. Like all these are what? Scalar quantities. Okay. Now the thing about the scalars, we already talked about it. These quantities are completely known if their magnitudes are known. Just by giving the magnitude value, right, it is sufficient that we got all the information about the scalars. And remember this thing, we already talked about it. What is it? They can be added up according to the ordinary rules of algebra. Means what? The 2 plus 3 is equal to 5, 5 plus 3 is equal to 8. The simple algebraic addition subtraction rules, right, they will be valid for the scalars. Clear, guys? So this is what is the idea of the set of physical quantities which we call as scalars. Okay. Then let us come to the vectors. So remember, I talked about the definition of scalars. There I said what? The conventional definition of scalars. Okay. Later the definition has been little bit modified, and now we look at the definition of vectors. Then I will tell you what is the modified definition of scalars. Okay. Anyway, so look at this. What is a vector? Physical quantities that have both magnitude and direction. Physical quantities that have both magnitude and direction. Remember, we said to describe a vector, we must talk about both the value, which is what we call as magnitude, and direction. We must talk about the magnitude and direction. Okay. Not only that, look at this. No, this is, I just underline this. Physical quantities that have both magnitude and direction, as well as obey the laws of vector addition. So it is not just sufficient if you have a physical quantity with magnitude and direction. It must also satisfy the laws of vector addition. See, whenever they are saying this, right, what it could mean, by looking at the statement itself we must get a hint. What? There could be some physical quantities having magnitude and direction but do not satisfy the vector law of addition. They do not satisfy the vector law of addition. I'll just give you an example. Okay, so electric current is a physical quantity which will have magnitude and direction. Current will have direction or not? Remember in normal 10th standard, right, when we talk about electrical circuits, what do we say? Current will be from the positive terminal of the battery and then it will go to the negative terminal of the battery, correct or not? So we are giving direction for the current, right? So current has got magnitude and direction, but current is not a vector, current is a scalar. Why, we will see. Okay, basically what is the reason? It will not be satisfying the vector law of addition. Okay, so we'll discuss more about that later, but there are physical quantities that have magnitude and direction and don't satisfy the vector law of addition. Are we going to call them as vectors? We cannot call them as vectors. In fact, electric current is what you know, it is a scalar. Electric current is what? Scalar. Okay, now this is what I said. In the conventional definition of scalar, what we said, physical quantities that are described just by the magnitude, no direction. That is what is the definition we gave. But here electric current is not satisfying the vector definition. That is why it is becoming what? Scalar. It is not satisfying the vector definition. That is why it is becoming what? Scalar. So the understanding that people have now is, if the physical quantities don't satisfy the vector relation or vector definition, then they could be either scalars, or we have one more category which we call as tensors, but unfortunately that is not there in our purview of the syllabus. Okay, except for some quantities, right? We'll discuss about it when we go to the particular examples. So there is another category which we call as what? Tensor. Okay, but the way we look at it is we have broadly vectors and scalars. Okay, so if the quantities don't obey the vector definition, right, then for now what we can assume, they can be put into the scalar set. Okay, but mind you, there is also this another term called as what? Tensors. We'll go and look at it when we have the specific examples. Okay, we have in our +1 syllabus, we have some tensor quantities. Okay, so look at the examples of what are vectors. So what are the examples of vectors? Like we already talked about it, displacement. So if you start from a point and go in a particular path to reach this is the initial point, this is the final point. What is the displacement? The shortest distance, shortest line that you draw from initial point to final point, right? The direction is what? From initial point to final point. That is what is the displacement. It is a vector. Velocity is what? Displacement by time. That is also vector. Acceleration is what? Rate of change of velocity. Vector. Momentum is mass into velocity. It is a vector. Force, mass into acceleration. Vector. Impulse is also a vector. Okay. Weight is what? The gravitational force acting on the object. Torque, angular momentum. So all these things we will learn when we go to the respective chapters. So here, even if I give you a quick definition of what is a torque, right, it is not going to serve the purpose, because when we go to rotational motion, then we will understand what is this torque. When we go to the circular motion, then we will understand what is angular velocity, what is angular momentum. But all these are what? Examples of vectors. Okay, which means what? They have magnitude, direction, and also they satisfy the vector law of addition. So this is important point, guys. Vectors cannot be added by using the rules of algebra. Okay, vectors are added geometrically. So this is what we are going to be learning in the triangle law of vector addition, or the parallelogram law of vector addition. So we cannot just add the vectors by using the algebraic relations, like 2 plus 3 is equal to 5, like that we cannot add. Okay, but what we can do, we can add the vectors by using the geometrical method. How we are going to add the vectors by using geometrical method? We will learn in the triangle law of vector addition and the parallelogram law of vector addition. Okay guys, now we will look at why current, it is having magnitude, direction, but still we are saying it is a scalar, it is not a vector. Why? We will just look at it. Okay, see, I'll just give you a very simple example. Let us say there is a branch 1 of current 2 ampere, branch 2 3 ampere. Okay, the current will come from both sides, it will go into the third branch. Okay, now here we can see the angle. So theta is what? Angle which represents the orientation between the two current directions. Theta can be changed. If you are bringing the wires closer, means theta will decrease. Take the wires away, means theta will be increasing. Correct? Now I'll just tell you very specific. In this case, let us say theta is equal to 45. What is the total current? Remember, we studied this in the 10th standard, right? if you have a junction, this you will again study in the 12th standard also. Junction, total current coming in is equal to total current going out. So total current coming in is what? 2 plus 3, right? 5. The total current going out must be equal to what? 5 amperes. So this is what in plus 2 you will learn. It is called as Kirchhoff's junction rule. What is it called as, guys? Kirchhoff's junction rule. Okay, you will learn about it in the 12th standard. Whatever the total current coming into junction, same amount of current must be leaving junction. Okay, if I change the angle between the two current wires from 45 to say 90, in this case also, you know what you'll see, from this side 2 ampere is coming, this side 3 ampere is coming. What is the total current coming in? 2 plus 3, 5, and total current leaving must be equal to what? 5 amperes. What you are seeing here is the total value of current or the resultant, the way you are calculating it, right? Is it depending upon the orientation between the two incoming currents? Whether the theta is 45 or theta is 90, the total value of current or resultant is coming as what? Same, right? Which means what? Current, it is not satisfying the vector law of addition. Remember, when we are applying forces on the object, right? If you are applying forces in the same direction, it's not ampere, it is force is Newton, same direction. In this case, what did we see? The total force is 10 Newton. If you apply in the opposite direction, total force will be 0. If you apply the forces in some other orientation, right, then the total force will be having a value between 0 to 10. So that is when we said what? The resultant in vectors, right, will not only depend upon the magnitudes of the quantities, but also depends upon the orientation between them. What is happening here? Whether the two branch wires are having an angle of 45 or 90, whatever it is, the total resultant current is what? Always coming as 5 amperes, means the current is not satisfying vector law of addition. That is why, even though electric current has got magnitude and direction, we are not going to be calling it as a vector. It is still a scalar quantity. Okay, and when we look at the study of vectors, what we are going to cover in our discussion, we look at first the idea of representation of vectors. We'll start with the representation of vectors. How are we going to represent vectors? Then we will cover some properties of vectors, and then we look at the operations involving vectors. So when we say operations, right, we talk about the addition, subtraction, and then multiplication. Okay, so multiplication means in this also we'll have two types of multiplication. One is what we call as a dot product, and the other multiplication we call it as what? Cross product. So what are the two types of multiplication between vectors? One we call as a dot product, other we'll call it as what? Cross product. But we'll go and look into these things. So this is what is our coverage. We are going to start with the understanding of representation of vectors, then we'll go and look at the properties of vectors, and then finally we'll cover the operations involving vectors, and also we have some related applications. So applications means this is not going to end here, because every chapter, right, we are going to be talking about one or the other quantity which will be a vector. There we'll always be having the corresponding applications. Okay, so we'll start with the representation of vectors. So how are we going to represent vector? See, alphabetical representation. What is alphabetical representation? Already, right, for certain quantities we have some alphabetical symbols. Like for acceleration, what is the symbol we generally use? A. For velocity, what is the symbol we use? V. Alphabetical representation is, we take the corresponding symbols which are commonly known and accepted and put a bar above it. Okay, so A bar represents what? Acceleration vector. V bar represents what? Velocity vector. F bar represents what? Force vector. Okay, like this we can and generally we will represent a displacement vector with what? S bar. Now what we need to be careful when we're talking about the alphabetical representation is we usually go with the accepted symbols. And one more thing that we have to be very careful is just because you put a bar above a quantity or a symbol does not mean that it is going to become vector. Like we also know what is the symbol that we use for mass m, but can I put m bar and say it is a vector? No, we can put that bar only for the quantities that are already vectors. Just by putting a bar above mass, right, that is not going to become a vector quantity. Clear, guys? Sometimes I've seen students saying, sir, why can't we just put m bar and it becomes a vector? That alphabetical representation is what? If you know that, okay, velocity is a vector, then we can take the corresponding symbol of velocity, which is v, and then put a bar above it. That becomes what? Velocity vector, like that. Okay, so clear, guys? This is what is the alphabetical representation. Now in this, one of the constraint we have is how many alphabetical representations we can have. We can have as many representations as is the total number of alphabets, correct? So which means this is constrained by the number of alphabets available, and we may have to find some alternative methods, like if you have many forces, right, what we'll do, first force we'll put it as f1 bar, f2 bar, f3 bar, we'll do subscripts and things like that. Okay, so this is what is the alphabetical representation. Clear, guys? Now the next representation, which is an important one, is what we call as the geometrical representation. Okay, so what is the geometrical representation? Geometrical representation is basically a vector can be represented by a line segment. What is the concept of geometrical representation? A vector can be represented by a line segment. So if, say for example, there is a vector which we are representing it by the line segment like this. Now two things will be important here. First thing is the length of the line segment, right? The length of the line segment will be proportional. So we will not say it is equal to, will be proportional to the vector magnitude. So the length of the line segment will be proportional to the vector magnitude. And the second thing is the arrow, right? Because the line segment will have an arrow. Arrow will indicate, so the arrow will indicate the direction, because for a vector we have to describe both the magnitude as well as direction. So when you are representing vector by using a line segment, the length of the line segment represents what? It is going to represent the magnitude, means a higher vector magnitude means the length should be more. Length is lesser means the vector is having lesser magnitude. Okay, and the arrow is going to be pointing in what? It will be pointing in the direction of the vector. Okay, whatever the direction is vector there, arrow will be pointing in the same direction. So a vector, right, can be geometrically represented by a line segment. Now here it is important to just get the clarity on how are we going to compare the magnitudes of the vectors when they are given in terms of the geometrical representation. So when the vectors are given in geometrical representation, right, how are we going to compare the magnitudes? Let us say I'm giving you two vectors here. This is vector 1 and this is vector 2. Are they in the same direction? No, they are in different directions. But just by looking at the length of the line segments, right, what we can say? We can say vector 2 has higher magnitude than 1. What we can say, the vector 2 is having higher magnitude than vector 1. Okay, so this is how we can look at the comparison. Now talking about the properties of the vectors. This is one of the very important property of vector, which we call as the translation of vector in space. This we are going to be using in lot of derivations that we are going to do, as well as even while solving the application level problems also we will use this. What is this translation of vector in a space? Say for example, there are some different number of students in the classroom. Okay, I want each of you to come on the board and draw a vector of 2 units magnitude in say for example a particular direction. Okay, like I've shown, like I've indicated the direction and I want you guys to draw a vector of 2 units magnitude. So when I call each and every student on the board and then ask them to draw, right, somebody might draw it there, somebody might draw it here, somebody might draw it there, somebody might draw it here. Now look at all of them. Are they all having same magnitude? You can see, right, they are all having the same length. The length of the line segment is what? Same. What about the directions? Directions are also same or not? The directions are also same. The only thing is they are drawing in different places on the board, because obviously all of them cannot draw in the same place, right? If one fellow is drawing in one place, means other fellow will draw in the other place. Now this is a very important concept that we need to understand. The concept is, what is the relation between them? Think about it. Okay, so this, let us call it as what? 1, let's call it as 2, call it as 3, call it as 4, call it as 5. If you take the first vector that I have drawn, just move it from here to here. When I say move, in physics, right, we'll mainly talk about 3 kinds of motion. One is what we call as translation. We'll talk about this in kinematics, even Newton's laws of motion. Then the other type of motion is rotation. We'll talk about this in the system of particles and rigid body motion, that chapter we have. Then the third type of motion is the oscillation. These are the 3 types of motion that we'll study. What are the 3 types of motion? Translation, rotation and oscillation. I'll just give you a very basic idea. Translation means what? Think about a car moving on a straight road. What is it? Each and every part of the car will be having the same path. It will go with the same velocity and it will cover the same displacement. That is what we call as a translatory motion. Think about a fan, the room in which you are sitting in it. If you have a fan, the fan will be rotating about the axis. That is what we call as the rotational motion. Oscillations means what? If you look at a pendulum clock, right, it will be actually doing what? Oscillations. So these are the 3 types of motion. Here what we are focusing on is the translation. If you take the first vector and just move it like that, so when I say just move it like that, what I am talking about is the translatory motion. We should not rotate the vector. What happens when you rotate? So here the thing that we have to keep in mind is there should be no rotation. So the rotation, right, rotation should not be there. Why? If you rotate means what is going to happen? Think about it, right? If you rotate means the direction of the vector will change, then the vector itself will change, because vector is defined by what? The magnitude and direction, correct? So we should not rotate it. If you just move the vector in translatory motion from here to here, what you can see, if you bring it here means we can exactly fit it onto the vector 2. We can see both of them are actually aligning. You can take it from here to here, translatory motion, it will exactly fit. You can bring it from here to here, it will exactly fit. You can bring it from here to here, it will exactly fit. So we can draw in different places, but if the length of that line segment and the direction they are same, then all of them are representing, they are not representing different vector, they are representing actually same vector quantity. All of them are representing the same vector quantity. So the property is what? Translation of vector in space means we should not rotate it, just translation of vector in space will not change the value. Like the way we have seen in this case, if we ask people to come and draw a vector of particular magnitude in a given direction. Each of them, they will draw in different places on the board. But what is the relation between them? When you take any one of them and then do translation, right, we can see all of them will exactly coincide. Means what? If a vector is translated in space without rotation, the vector value will not be changing. Okay guys, so this is a very important property of the vector. Then the magnitude of a vector. So we said two things are important for the vector. What are the two things? One is of course the magnitude, and other part is the direction. So what are the two important things about the vector? One is the magnitude, second is the direction. The magnitude of a vector, right, will be represented by what? It will be represented by, in the geometrical representation, what we said, it will be represented by the length of the line segment. It will be represented by the length of the line segment. Okay, means the vector magnitude, right, cannot be negative. It can be 0, it can be positive, but it cannot be negative, because length cannot be negative, right? Minimum what it can be 0. So what we say, the length of the line segment will be always non-negative, right? So vector magnitude will also be what? Always non-negative. So it can be 0, but it cannot be negative. Generally, if you have a vector a bar, right, its magnitude is represented by simple a. Otherwise, we will use this notation. This notation is called as what? Modulus representation. What do we call it as? Modulus representation. So we'll put two vertical lines on either side, right? So this notation represents what? The magnitude of the vector. Similarly, if you put f bar modulus, this is spelled as modulus of f bar. How do you spell it? As modulus of f bar. This represents what? The magnitude of the f bar vector. Clear? So this will be always more than or equal to 0. It is always what? Non-negative. Okay, it can be 0 also, and we'll see if we have a vector whose magnitude is 0, right? You know what we'll call the vector as? We'll call the vector as a null vector or a zero vector. A vector with 0 magnitude will be called as what? It will be called as a null vector or a zero vector. Okay, so we'll go into another property. So this is another important property. So look at this. When a vector a bar is multiplied by a constant k, the resultant is another vector, which will be, again we are putting that modulus. See, modulus of k means what? For this is k is not a vector, k is a number. Okay, so modulus of k means, here in mathematics we will call it as absolute value function. In mathematics, what do we call it as, guys? We will call it as absolute value function. Means what? Modulus of -2 will be 2, modulus of 2 will be 2, modulus of -4 will be 4, modulus of 3 will be 3, modulus of 0 will be 0. We just take the absolute value. That is what we call as the modulus function or absolute value function in mathematics. So modulus of negative value also will be what? Same numerical value but positive. Okay, so look at this. If you are multiplying a vector by a constant k, then the resultant will be another vector. It will be modulus of k times longer than a bar. It will be how many times longer than a bar? Modulus of k times longer than a bar. Okay, we'll discuss about this with examples. Look at the next point also now. If k is positive, then k into a bar will be in the same direction as a bar, and will be in opposite direction if k is negative. Means if k is positive, means k a bar will be in the same direction as a bar. If k is negative, means it will be in what direction? It will be in opposite direction. I'll just take one simple example and then try to explain to you. Let's say there is a vector a bar. This is vector a bar. If you want to look at what is going to be 2a bar, 2a bar will be what? It will be 2 times that of a bar. We can see how we are saying 2 times. The length of the line segment will be double, 2 times a bar. And what about the direction? Direction is same. That is what is going to be our 2a bar. if you want to look at what is minus 2a bar, remember, if you are multiplying a vector by a number k, the resultant vector will be how many times longer? Modulus of k times. Means minus 2a bar will be how many times longer than a bar? It will be modulus of minus 2, means again 2 times longer. But here k is negative, means ka bar will be exactly in the opposite direction. So look at this, guys. It will be a bar is this is minus 2a bar. What about the length of the minus 2a bar? Same 2 times of a bar. But what about the direction? It will be opposite. If you have to write 3.5 into a bar, because k need not be always integer, k can be fraction or decimal also. 3.5 into a bar means what? It will be how many times? The length will be 3.5 times a. Direction is going to be same, a bar direction. If you have to put minus 4.5 into a bar, you know, it will be what? 4.5 times a bar. This is 4.5 times the length that of a bar, but direction is going to be exactly opposite. Clear, guys? So this is what will be the multiplying of vector with a constant. So when you multiply a vector with a constant or a number may be an integer or a fraction or anything. Okay, here of course you guys didn't ask me what is the situation where k is 0, because we said what k is positive, k is negative, k can be 0 also, right? If k is 0, what you are going to get? 0 into a bar will be 0. That is what is going to be a null vector or a 0 vector. So if k is positive, means we will get a vector which is in the same direction as a bar. Length how many times? Modulus of k times. If k is negative, means we will get a vector in the opposite direction. Length how many times? Modulus of k times than a bar. Okay, so this is what is the multiplying of an vector with a constant. Now if k in that previous discussion, right, if k is exactly minus 1, means what? Think of it, this is a bar. Minus a bar means what? Minus a bar means what? It will be exactly modulus of minus 1 times. Means what is modulus of minus 1? Means 1 only, right? It will be 1 times a length. Means what? It is like, so length is going to be same as a bar. But what about the direction? Direction is exactly going to be opposite, because here k is negative. So minus a bar, right, it will be what? It will be vector which has same magnitude but in opposite direction to a bar. What is the negative of that? Is also we call as what? Negative of vector. What is the negative of vector? If you have a vector, like say for example, there is a 2 Newton force in north, that is a vector. Exactly take 2 Newton force, same magnitude, in south. So what we call this set as? They are negative vectors with respect to each other, because one is what? 2 newtons towards north, other is 2 newtons towards south. Both have the same magnitude but exactly opposite direction. Clear? So this set is what we call as negative vectors. So the first vector is a negative of another, second vector is negative of first, like that. Okay, so this is what is the concept of the negative vectors. Then we have the idea of what we call as a unit vector. This is another important thing. What is a unit vector? A unit vector is a vector having unit magnitude. Means what? Unit means what? 1. So magnitude is going to be what? 1. So if you have a vector whose magnitude is equal to 1, that vector will be called as what? Unit vector. Like say, I'm just giving you one very simple example. 1 Newton force towards east, that is a unit vector, because what is the magnitude? 1. 1 meter per second velocity in north. What is this? Unit vector, because what is the magnitude? 1 unit. Okay, now if you have vector a bar, if you have vector a bar, like this is a vector a bar, okay, the unit vector in that direction will be denoted by A cap. See how we are writing it as A, we'll put a cap. We either read it as what? A cap or A caret. Understand the concept? If you have a vector A bar, in that same direction, if you think about a vector with how much magnitude? 1 magnitude. How we are going to represent this? We'll represent it as what? A cap. How are we going to represent this? We'll represent it as what? A cap. Okay. Now, what I want you to look at is, what will be the relation between A bar and A cap? What will be the relation between A bar and A cap? Okay, look at this. A cap is a vector. What is the magnitude? 1. A bar, what is the magnitude of A bar? We can represent it by the symbol A simply, or we can even put it as what? Modulus of A bar, whichever we are comfortable. Either we can use symbol A or modulus of A bar. That is what is the magnitude. This may be 2 or 3, whatever it is. Now you tell me, if you have A cap which is 1, A bar is 2 times or 3 times. How are we going to relate A cap to A bar? Just think about it. What will be A into A cap? A is what? The magnitude of the vector A bar. It may be 2 or 3. If you multiply number 2 with A cap, means what? Remember the property we discussed. If you multiply number to a vector, the vector is going to become what? That much longer. That many times longer. If the number is positive, means it will be in same direction. Negative means opposite direction, right? If you multiply A with A cap, A may be 2 or 3. Then A into A cap will be having how much magnitude? It will be 1 into 2 or 1 into 3. Means what? Its magnitude is same as the A bar vector. And what about the direction? Direction is same, right? Because already A cap and A bar are in the same direction. Means what? A into A cap is exactly going to give us what? Our A bar vector. A into A cap is exactly going to give us what? Our A bar vector. Okay. We can even understand this with an example also. Let us say A bar is a force of 4 newtons in east. Okay. A cap will be what? A cap will be 1 newton in east. That is A cap. Okay. So if you multiply A cap with number 4, why 4? Because that is what is the modulus of A bar, right? If you multiply A cap with 4, what you are going to get? 4 into 1 newton towards east. Means what is it? 4 newtons towards east. That is what is our A bar, right? So if you have vector A bar and unit vector in the direction, if you have vector A bar and unit vector in the direction, right? How are we going to represent? We'll represent the unit vector as what? A cap. Okay, and what is the relation between them? I'll just rewrite the relation here. So the relation between the vector A bar and A cap is what? Maybe you can try and check by yourself also with some other examples. What is the relation between them? The relation is this. If you take A cap unit vector and multiply this with the A bar magnitude, then the resultant vector, because if you multiply a number to a vector, right, the resultant will be what? Vector. And what is the resultant vector going to be? A bar. Okay, we can also write it like this. A cap will be equal to A bar by A, or A bar by, because the magnitude, right, either we can put with symbol simply A, or we can even express it as what? Modulus of A, like this. Okay, this is what is the relation between A bar and A cap. Now what is the purpose of these unit vectors? Okay, the unit vectors are mainly used for what? They are used for the indicating of the directions. The unit vectors are used for what? They are used for the indication of the directions. That is the main purpose of using the unit vectors. So when we go to the numerical problems, right, then we will be able to understand in what exact manner these unit vectors will be used. Okay, so they will be used in indicating the directions. Now, while we talked about the unit vectors, right, there is a special importance for unit vectors which are along the positive x-axis, positive y-axis and positive z-axis. So we will take the unit vector along the positive x-axis to be represented by the symbol I cap. This is not capital I, this is small I. Okay, we will take unit vector along the positive y-axis as j cap. We will take unit vector along the positive z-axis as k cap. Okay, what is I cap? Unit vector along the positive x-axis. This is a notation or convention we follow. This is how we will represent them. Unit vector along the positive y-axis, we will represent it as what? J cap. Unit vector along the positive z-axis, we will represent it as what? K cap. Now, this is say positive x direction. This is the origin. Negative x means what? Exactly opposite. So unit vector along the negative x-axis will be what? It will be minus I cap. It will be exactly negative of the I cap vector. Positive y, opposite will be what? Negative y. Unit vector along the negative y direction will be what? Minus j. So j cap is one length in the positive y direction. What will be one length along the negative y direction? Exactly minus j. Unit vector along the positive z axis is what? K cap. Along the negative z axis, how much it is going to be? Minus k cap. So unit vectors along the positive x axis, positive y axis and positive z axis are what? I cap, j cap and k cap. What about along the negative x axis, negative y axis and negative z axis? It will be minus I cap, minus j cap and minus k cap. Okay, so this is what is the unit vectors along the Cartesian. So the xyz axis, right? We also call them as what? The Cartesian coordinate axis. Okay, and they are also called as orthogonal triad. The orthogonal triad of the unit vectors. Why? Because these will be I cap and j cap. They will be perpendicular to each other. J cap and k cap perpendicular. K cap and I cap, they will be mutually perpendicular to each other. That's why what do we call them as? Orthogonal triad. What do we call them as? We will call them as what? The orthogonal triad of the unit vectors, because they will be what? They will be mutually perpendicular to each other. Now in the subsequent discussion, right, we will see what will be furthermore relations that we are having between the I cap, j cap and k cap. Okay, so for now it is sufficient if we look at the basic notation that we follow. Okay, so what is it? So we will call them as the orthogonal triad, unit orthogonal triad. Okay, because they are all unit vectors and they are perpendicular with respect to each other, mutually perpendicular. So they are what? Mutually perpendicular. That is why we call them as what? Unit orthogonal triad. Okay, so this is about the introduction to vectors and some basic properties of the vectors. In the second part video, right, we'll start with further more properties, and then we'll get into the applications. So applications or operations involving the vectors. Okay, we'll see in the next session.